What's up, guys? It's Blake from Chasing Creative, and today we're going to do a little bit of whiteboard exercise so that you can get an idea of what you should be doing for your B2B business. So here's a few tips that I recommend to both my clients and then what I do as well to drum up new business here in 2025.
Meet Blake Wise, the visionary behind Chasing Creative. He's on a mission to create content that doesn't just tell a story, it elevates your brand. From epic resorts to innovative services, Blake's work captures the essence of what makes you unique. Our content isn't just for show, it's a powerhouse for both organic growth and paid ads. Brands like Square Payments, Fairmont Orchid Hawaii, and Amberjack trust us to deliver, and we've done it for hundreds more. Whether we're shooting with an iPhone or high-resolution cameras, we bring your vision to life. Ready to reach new heights? Partner with Chasing Creative and let's make magic together.
So let's dive in. Let's say pillars of B2B marketing. Okay, so we have pillars of B2B marketing. The first thing I want you to focus on is your website. So your website is your story. Now, there's a good book out there called StoryBrand. I've read through it, and there's some really good visuals there as well that you can dive into how your organization has to have a story and it has to function well. But this is where you really want to focus on your key message. Now, this is the problem with many websites that I've rebuilt and worked on is people have multiple messages. This is so confusing for a customer that's really just trying to find your basic solution that you're solving for their business and then move deeper down the funnel to understand more holistically all the services you offer. So focus on one key message. There's a famous quote and video out there from Steve Jobs that we don't have a lot of time when our customers come in and they're not going to really remember us for much. So what is that key message about your product or your service that they're going to remember you for? And then being specific to your top ICP, because you probably have multiple ideal customer profiles or personas for your business, but focusing on that top notch is really what's important there. And within the website, there's a few different elements. So you have your key message and then you have your visuals. So this is all of the video, the photo, the aesthetics, the drawings or the renderings that describe your product or service. That is key, and make sure that the visuals are something that are going to identify with your brand now and in the future. So a lot of times I'm redoing websites, chatting to different business owners because they need to refresh this. That's something that's constant. We're going to see marketers really pivoting to this production value that's there because visuals are so important. And then third is your tech stack. Oftentimes. That's because tech stacks can be incredibly expensive. They're also complex within their systems, and if you're not talking about it day to day, it can almost be like a foreign language. But really within the tech stack, the things that I want you to focus on is your analytics, your email, which also kind of goes into CRM if you want to bundle it all together so it's easier to find. Privacy, so privacy and regs, you need to make sure GDPR compliant, CCPA. And then also kind of being able to unmask traffic. So why this is important is the analytics are going to tell you, is your SEO working? Is your paid media working? Is your content working? What pages people are on? What's most important? What you can improve upon? Things like Google Analytics. You can use different plugins to funnel all your analytics in one place for your team to review. That's the most important thing. Wherever those analytics live, your team needs to be able to actually use those and access those in a way that's digestible and understandable to them. They don't have to know everything, but there should be a baseline. Everybody's on the same page with analytics. This is one of the biggest problems I see with companies is nobody knows what data is accurate and everybody else has their own standard of truth. Email and CRM, how are you following up with the leads that you're capturing on your website and automating that? So if you're using different tools, and this is more for your inbound, not your outbound, that would be a separate system. I'm not including that in the website because that's almost a sales tactic separately that drives traffic to the website. And then the CRM, how are you labeling those different leads coming in? How are you routing those leads different that are coming in? And how are you creating value for those leads quickly? Whether that's further education, because if you have this, the analytics here, and you see, and you can tie that into your CRM, that they're on a certain page, you can deliver information to them, right? to more educate them. When you have these two things connecting together, the analytics, the email, the CRM, you're educating. This is really big in D2C marketing or D2C brands and their marketing of products, but also in B2B, this is very important, especially if you have complex solutions. Next thing I want to talk about is privacy and regulations. That's important on your website and your tech stack because it's one of the key components of where you're capturing user data. If that user data isn't permitted, you can't use it, and which also affects your overall marketing strategy. You also have to be in compliance in the different regions that you are selling into, not even where you're based. So if you're in the US and you have UK customers or EU customers, you have to be GDPR compliant. Also, if you're selling into California, CCPA. I use a tool called Axeptio and I represent them. One of the biggest feedback components I've gotten from customers lately is that they're like, wow, this is actually really inexpensive. That's because they built an app that does it all in one. So definitely check them out and also make sure that's part of your tech stack because you don't want to be getting fees for something that costs as little as $29 a month to take care of. And then traffic and unmasking. So being able to see the traffic coming into your website, there's a lot of analytics tools out there and data tools that you can use to unmask or de-anonymize the traffic coming to your website. Then also how you're doing your outbound after that is important. I recommend a company called Warmly. They're continuing to grow. It's a great tool, unmasked, and also has orchestration that you can plug into your different CRMs or sales tools like Apollo, reach out on LinkedIn, things like that. So one of the biggest pillars of B2B marketing is having a great website, visually appealing, having the key messaging, and then also having a great tech stack. You don't have to get married to all the different platforms. You can test them and see what works well for your brand, and that's super, super important. So that's one of the first pillars here. Your website equals your story. You're telling about your brand, and I highly recommend this for B2B brands. Let's dive into the next one that I'm gonna recommend. The next biggest component of B2B, and I know a lot of you guys know this out there, is, are you gonna guess it? Networking. This is one of the biggest things I see in B2B that actually leads to developing new business and making new connections. And so within networking, there's a few different elements. The first one I'll say is digital. And digital is things like LinkedIn, Shorts, things like that. Okay, so platforms, and the number one in B2B is obviously LinkedIn. That's where you're gonna find most of your legit leads, and I'm not talking about doing in-mail here, I'm talking about doing actual networking. You know, this is a two-way street. Networking means engaging with people's content freely, giving a great comment that educates, informs, supports. All of these different actions that you can take on LinkedIn is highly important for you in growing in your career, but then also for the companies that you're working for. If you have a personal brand here, which is how I probably get 50% of my leads, is through LinkedIn connections and referrals. And not only just developing new business, but the validation of current business, seeing that you're operating in the space, that you're growing a brand and more is highly, highly important. So the first part of networking is the digital component. Now, when you're operating on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, all of these different things, the next part that I think is important is in person. Events. There's nothing better than shaking someone's hand in person at these events and getting their information. They can look you in the eye, they can validate who you are, they can learn about your business, and they can be more candid than what you will be in an email, a social post, a message, things like that. So in-person events is super important for networking. And some of the things that I recommend is pre-promotion. Let the world know you're going to be at that event. This is huge on LinkedIn right now, and that's why I mentioned LinkedIn first. But all the different platforms, let people know that you're going to be there. Find the relevant hashtags, find the relevant threads or chats people have, and make sure to pre-promo that you're going to be there. Update your LinkedIn status name to be able to say that you're soon going to be at an event. I just did this at Possible 2025, and it was helpful for meeting folks there. Also going to jump back to digital quick too. Another tool you should check out is Superpowers for LinkedIn. Go check that out, it's free. That's a component that you can add to your Google Chrome as a widget and a connection there that allows you to have that Chrome extension that you can auto connect with people in your ICP going to an event. Now you can also follow them. I recommend just following if you're trying to connect with people. You can set it and forget it in the search bar. More information, just look that up yourself, but connects to this pre-promotion as well. Connect to as many people that might have hashtag whatever in their name or their bio as they're going to an event. The next thing I'll say about in-person events is there's kind of break-off events, and there's break-off parties and external happy hours and sidebars. And so I would say find the sidebars. Sidebar conversations, meetings, networking events. Sign up ahead of time. I experienced this at an event that a lot of folks I was networking with were going to different after parties, connections, sources where people can hang out and get more intimate in conversation versus the larger scale event. And you have to really register for a lot of these before, but then also you have to be willing to show up and turn up and not be afraid to do that. Which leads me to my next point is solo is okay. Solo is okay. I think a lot of people think when you go to events, you have to send a massive team. I'll say I started going to events by myself about 4 years ago, and it actually led to me helping to be able to start my own freelance business quite rapidly because I already had connections and I had people who knew who I was without going solo, which feels uncomfortable at first. When you go solo, you have to make new friends and you start to develop your own community at these events, at these micro events pretty rapidly when you're by yourself. Now, a lot of pros at networking events also would say, hey, split up as a group too. And so you can go with a group. Just make sure you split up and have conversations with other people. That's why you're there. Of course, you want them to meet your team and your colleagues, but going to events solo is a great way to network and make more friends. If you're a marketer like me and you want to learn more about sales, pitching, and introducing yourself, this solo is going to build up your confidence and your skill set to go to events where you're not reliant on other people or facilitation of roundtables and things like that, which are all great. You're able to actually just jump in by yourself and do that. And then third is it's similar to pre-promote. It's after the event's done, promote more. So at these networking events, you can do a blog, you can do a case study, you can do a recap, you can do an email blast, you can do a special offer, you can do a follow-up with a gifting. There's tons of things that you can promote more after you're attending these in-person networking events or online. You could also go do a live and do a recap on LinkedIn about hashtag, live that you actually, hey, this is the things I've learned with some of the people that you met in person, right? I went to the event, you knew I was going. Now how can we promote our businesses in tandem that we both learned about each other? So networking to me is one of the most important things you can do. And some of my consultants and mentors that I work with have shown me the power of networking, speed to lead, closing deals, and also being trustworthy, because in this market today, there's a lot of people that say they can do certain work, but people want to see and have that vetting through your network. So having a great personal brand across these platforms, mostly LinkedIn if it's B2B, but YouTube Shorts I don't sleep on because actually highly discoverable, and not a lot of people are a lot of people are posting there, but a lot of B2B brands are not posting there where they could be discovered through different searches. And so all of this too, make sure you wrap up into a blog, make sure you wrap up into some information and post it on your website, because those events are often searched for in the coming years if they're annual and things like that, if you're going to an in-person event. So networking is key. After websites, I would have your website in place, because if you're going to go to a networking event, you got to have a place to point them to, right? So go do the website, do the networking, and let's talk about my last point here. Okay, guys, this is the last one here, and it is social proof. Great one. One of my favorite ones because I'm kind of social, but I also love telling stories of impact. And so one of the first ones that we'll talk about that many of you already do, but I'm saying continue to ramp up. Case studies. Case studies are super, super important. And there's a lot of different ways you can do them, but you should have case studies from real customers, from real projects on your website. You should have them in print form if you're doing trade shows. Again, that's part of the networking. If you actually have a booth set up there, you want to share these case studies. What it's really good for is you get to brag about your brands, honor current customers, and spread the word. And specifically spreading the word about what you actually do. So obviously bragging about them is totally separate. honoring your customers. They love when you tell a story about how successful an implementation went, how successful a project went, the outcome. I mean, this is really, really, really fun to do, is showing who you get to work with, but really honoring them. That's where you're gonna get the repeat business. And why I think the social proof is so important is that the more that you're able to show the niche, the network, the community that you're in by honoring current customers, they're gonna become a referral for you because you're sharing about what they do openly and creating content for them. So I'll get more into that in this next point. Spread the word. That obviously is you getting the information out about your business. But if you could create a case study that brags about the brand, state problem that they had, the challenge, the way that you prescribed a remedy for it, and the final solution and outcome, that's a basic case study outline right there. If you do a blog or anything like that, that's the way to do it. And it's gonna be a win-win for everybody. The second one is video content. And this kind of connects with the first one, right? Case studies can be a video as well. One of the things I love about video is that you can do it over Zoom, but it's in person. You get to connect in person, you get to share about it with your folks, and you get to develop those relationships apart from just getting the content. That's the second point, is content gen. So with a video, you can also dice that down into shorts. You can have ChatGPT take the script and put it into a blog with your relevant SEO and keywords. You're able to come up with more new ideas to share with folks, and you're using those niche industry terms that are also going to be valuable to your brand, to your customers, and to educate people on what you do specifically. So that content generation is important. The in-person, though, you can do this digitally too, and actually case studies over a Zoom, or what I like to use is a platform called Riverside. You can do it remotely, so if people don't have time. Obviously, if you're doing in person, that's much more costly. I do think you get more out of that. And then if you do it via Riverside, you're able to do that and bring in multiple stakeholders. I usually think 1 to 2 people is enough. And then you're developing a ton of content from video. And there's a ton of videos out there where you, and I have some on my blog too, where you start with the core video and you dice that down more and more. But also the biggest point to me, and the in-person, is relationship. One of the things I've seen myself from doing different videos and traveling around with clients and their clients and doing video production on site and in person is that the relationship really gets cultivated because you're spending a lot of quality time together, and usually it's around their space or a project that they're very proud of, and you're really hijacking an awesome way to onboard to a relationship that might not otherwise happen over digital means, or if you haven't had a lot of in-person connections previously. So I do think the money that you would spend on video production and content leads to not just giving you a lot of content to develop new business, but it's also a great retention strategy to develop relationships with your customers. And I think we're gonna see more and more people doing that because it's a win-win. And if you're paying for it for the brand, you're also taking some of the money that that customer just spent on you and investing it right back in them, so that way they can grow their brand. And that's the whole point, is grow and scale together. My name's Blake at Chasing Creative, and I would love to help you grow and scale your business together. Just reach out to me, and I'd love to chat more about this with you guys. Have a great weekend.